There's a guy named Daniel, 34, a senior analyst, the kind of employee every company says they want. He showed up early, he covered for people who didn't, and when the budget got cut and half his department evaporated, he absorbed the extra work without a single complaint. For 9 years, he believed the company would remember that. Then one Friday, after a meeting where his director mispronounced his name and dismissed his proposal in front of everyone, a friend in accounting leaned over and said the words that would end his career. "You should write to HR. Put it in writing. They have to take that seriously." So Daniel did. He sat at his kitchen table that night and typed everything. How undervalued he felt, how he suspected the promotion he'd been promised was never coming, how he'd started, quietly, sending out his resume. He even wrote that he thought the way they handled the layoffs probably crossed a legal line. He hit send at 11 p.m. and slept better than he had in months. 11 days later, his manager scheduled a quick chat. There was a document on the desk. Daniel didn't recognize the language on it, but it had his name at the top and the words "performance concerns" underneath. 2 months after that, he was forwarding his work email to a personal account and clearing out his desk drawer, holding a stapler he'd bought himself, wondering how the man who never missed a deadline became a liability overnight. Here's the part Daniel never understood until it was over. He didn't lose his job because of what was true. He lost it because of what he said in writing to people whose entire purpose he had completely misread. And I need you to stick with me all the way to the end of this video because the final 3 things on this list are the ones that quietly torch a career while the person doing it still thinks they're being brave and honest. Most people never realize what happened until the door has already closed behind them. I'm Henry, and on this channel we don't dress up the truth to make you comfortable. We hand you the truth so you stay employed. Welcome to Henry Wealth Blueprint. Let me be clear about something right now because everything in this video depends on it. This is not a video designed to make you paranoid. It's designed to make you sharp. There's a real difference. HR is not the enemy. Most of the people in those roles are decent humans who'd rather help you than hurt you. But decent humans operate inside a system, and the system has one job that overrides every kind smile and every open door policy. So before we touch the list, burn this single sentence into your memory. Human resources exist to reduce risk to the company, not your career, not your peace of mind, not your future. The company. Every single thing you say inside that office gets run through one silent filter before anyone responds to you, and that filter asks one question: does this create exposure for the organization? The second you understand that filter is always running, the next 10 minutes are going to feel like someone finally handed you the rule book nobody bothered to give you. So here we go. 10 things you should never admit at work. Number 1. I can't stand my boss. Imagine you've spent the last 6 weeks watching your manager hand your projects to someone with half your experience. Your suggestions get ignored, then repeated back to the room a week later by someone else who gets the credit. You're done pretending it's fine, so you walk in and you say it plainly. I can't stand working for this person anymore. It's affecting everything. And here's what you didn't see. Before you've even gotten back to your desk, the temperature of the room has changed. You're not a star employee with a legitimate grievance now. You're an interpersonal conflict, and conflicts have to be resolved. And do you want to guess the cheapest, fastest way an organization resolves a conflict between an employee and a manager? It's almost never by replacing the manager. Studies in organizational psychology have repeatedly found that complaints framed as personal hostility rather than as business problems correlate with worse performance evaluations in the months that follow. The framing isn't decoration, the framing is the whole game. So here's the move. Instead of declaring war on a person, name a problem. Try, I've been running into some friction in how my supervisor and I work together, and I'd like to find a constructive way to improve it. Same exact situation. One version makes you the fire, the other makes you the firefighter. Now, there is one exception that matters, and I'll come back to it in detail later, because if your boss's behavior crosses into something genuinely unlawful, softening your words is not what you want to do. But we'll get there, and what you do instead is going to surprise you. Number 2, I'm not paid what I'm worth. Let's say you stumble onto the truth that the person 2 cubicles down, who leaves at 4 and does noticeably less than you, is pulling $15,000 more a year than you are. The anger that hits you is completely justified, so you march in and announce that you're underpaid and it isn't fair. And in that exact moment, before the conversation has even warmed up, you've thrown away every ounce of leverage you walked in with. Most working people in this country are underpaid relative to their output. That part is real. But fairness isn't currency in that room. Evidence is. Showing up with a feeling and no data is like sitting down at a poker table, announcing you have a bad hand, and then asking everyone to be nice to you. So, before you say a word to anyone, build your case. Pull real market numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, from salary data on LinkedIn, from industry reports for your role and region. Walk in with the number already in your head. Then say something like, I'd like to set aside time to review my compensation in light of my contributions over the past year and where the market currently sits for this role. That's a negotiation. The other version was a tantrum, and tantrums get documented, not rewarded. And quick note, HR is frequently the wrong room for this entirely. The person who actually controls your salary line is usually your manager or the department head with budget authority. Knowing who holds the money changes everything. But there's a deeper trap most people fall into when they want more, and it's coming up in just a moment. Number 3, I'm completely burned out. Picture the last 6 months of your life. 2 co-workers left and were never replaced. You inherited their workloads on top of your own, and you've been holding it together with caffeine and willpower. You're empty. So you sit down across from HR and you say, honestly, that you're overwhelmed, you're burned out, you don't know how much longer you can keep this up. And what you don't realize is that you just nominated yourself for a list, not the high potential list, the other one. Feeling burned out doesn't make you weak. The vast majority of American workers report serious work-related stress. But when you express that exhaustion with no structure, no specific request, and no connection to a business cost, the picture that forms in HR's mind isn't this person is overloaded and the company failed to staff properly. It's this person can't handle the job. And that picture gets painted in a room you're not even standing in. So flip it. Instead of confessing that you're drowning, present a capacity problem you intend to solve. Something like, the current workload has created some real bandwidth constraints, and I want to address them before they affect delivery. Can we talk through how to prioritize? Same crushing week, completely different impression. One sounds like a breakdown, the other sounds like leadership. And if that overload is sitting right there in your emails and your messages, the requests piling up from your manager, save copies of those somewhere outside the company's systems because that record is yours, and you may need it for the reason I'm about to explain in point 8. Number 4. I heard from someone that a coworker corners you near the coffee machine and whispers that she overheard leadership talking about cuts coming next quarter. The fear sets in immediately. So at your next one-on-one, you bring it up. I heard there might be layoffs coming. Is that true? And just like that, you've detonated 2 careers with one sentence. First, you've labeled yourself as someone wired into the gossip pipeline, which is exactly the kind of person organizations watch carefully. Second, the coworker who trusted you is now suspected of leaking internal information. You torched both of you over a rumor. So lock in this rule and never break it. You speak only to what you personally witnessed. Specific dates, specific events, things that happen directly in front of you. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, it does not leave your mouth in that building. Anything secondhand makes you look like a player in office politics, and the people at the center of office politics are exactly the people HR feels zero obligation to protect. Now here's where the stakes start climbing, because the next few are the ones that don't just stall a career, they end one. Number 5. Just between us, Daniel made this mistake too before he ever sent that email. Months earlier, at a company holiday mixer, he ended up chatting with someone from HR by the snack table, both of them holding plastic cups, both of them relaxed. And he said, half joking, just between us, I really don't think my director respects anyone on my team. They both laughed. He forgot about it by the next morning. They didn't. When his formal complaint landed 11 days after that Friday email, the story about Daniel was already half written, and that throwaway comment by the snack table was one of the first lines in it. So understand this completely. There is no just between us at your job. There is no off the record. There is no casual chat that stays casual. HR professionals are often obligated to document disclosures involving harassment, discrimination, safety, or legal exposure, no matter how informally the words were spoken. When you lean in and say, just between us, You think you're building trust. What you're actually doing is starting a paper trail. So here's the test, and it works everywhere. Before you say anything to anyone connected to your workplace, imagine that sentence printed on a page and read out loud in a room containing your manager, your director, and HR. If that thought makes your stomach drop, the sentence stays inside your head. That test applies by the coffee machine, in the elevator, at happy hour, and especially in the moments you feel safest. Number 6. I've been thinking about leaving. You've been passed over twice. You're tired of waiting for recognition that never comes. So you decide to play what feels like a power move. You hint that you might be looking elsewhere, hoping the company will suddenly snap awake, realize what they have, and fight to keep you. Sometimes that works. Far more often, it does the exact opposite. Research into employee retention consistently shows that workers who signal an intention to leave end up receiving fewer growth opportunities, get passed over for high visibility projects, and are less likely to receive discretionary bonuses in the months that follow, even when they end up staying for years. The instant you tell them you might walk, they stop building a future that includes you. They quietly take you out of the leadership pipeline. They stop advocating for your raise behind closed doors. Why would any organization invest in someone they've been told has one foot out the door? So keep your search completely silent. Tell no one inside the building. And if you've already accepted an offer somewhere else, that's when your silence matters most of all. But there's a closely related admission that's even more damaging than hinting at the exit, and it's next. Number 7. I don't trust the people running this place. Leadership drops a surprise reorganization on a Tuesday morning. Dozens of people lose their roles with no warning and no real explanation. You're rattled, and you say it out loud in HR. Honestly, I don't trust leadership anymore. I don't even know what this company is doing. Here's the problem with that. HR works for the same organization those leaders built. You just walked up to someone's colleague and insulted the people who signed their paycheck. That doesn't earn you sympathy, it earns you a label. From that sentence forward, you are the disengaged one, the misaligned one, the flight risk, and that label rides along into every conversation anyone has about you when you're not in the room. So say the same thing without lighting yourself on fire. Try. I want to make sure I really understand the direction we're heading so I can stay aligned and keep contributing where it matters most. Same underlying concern. Zero flag, no label, no trail. You raise the issue as someone trying to solve a problem instead of someone who's become one. Number 8. I'm pretty sure what they did was illegal. This is where Daniel's story cuts the deepest, because this is the line he typed at 11 p.m., feeling like it gave his message weight. It did carry weight, just not in the direction he intended. He had no documentation, he had no lawyer, he didn't even have a clear understanding of which law he thought had been broken. He just dropped the word and hoped it would protect him. It did the reverse. Now listen carefully, because if you genuinely believe something unlawful happened where you work, you have real enforceable protections. The National Labor Relations Act, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, OSHA. These are powerful, but they only work for the people who use them correctly. And here's what retaliation actually looks like in everyday American workplaces. You report something, and 3 weeks later, the promotion everyone assumed was yours goes to someone else. You raise a concern, and your schedule quietly shrinks. You flag discrimination, and you're suddenly shuffled to a team with less visibility, fewer resources, and a worse path forward. Retaliation has become one of the most frequently filed charges in workplace discrimination claims in this country year after year. So if any of that feels uncomfortably familiar, here's your sequence. And the order is everything. Document first. Dates, times, exactly what was said, who was present. Keep all of it on a personal device and a personal email, never on company systems. And then your very first call is not to HR and it's not to your manager, it's to an employment attorney, many of whom offer a free first consultation. You walk into that fight knowing your position before you say a single word, because the moment you tip off the company without counsel of your own, they bring in their lawyers and you've got nobody in your corner. Which leads directly into the next one, and it's one of the most natural human reactions there is. Number 9. I just needed to get it off my chest. It was the week from hell. Your biggest client walked. Your manager corrected you in front of the whole team over something that wasn't even your fault, and your expense report got rejected for the third straight time over a rule nobody told you about. So you sit down in HR and you let all of it pour out, everything you've been swallowing for months. And then, feeling lighter, you finish with, "Sorry, I just needed to vent. I feel a lot better now." With that one apology, you just told HR that everything you said was emotion, not fact. And in a single breath, your feelings became your professional reputation. Emotion without documentation gets quietly filed under unstable. You stopped being the strong performer who was under enormous pressure. You became the unpredictable one, the one who's hard to manage, the question mark in every staffing conversation. So vent. You absolutely should vent. It's healthy and human. Vent to your closest friend. Vent on a walk. Call your sibling. Talk to a therapist. Do it everywhere on this earth except that office, because in that office, the words don't evaporate. They get recorded, and there is no unsaying them. Now we come to the last one, and it's the single sentence that ends the conversation forever. Number 10. I'll get a lawyer. I'll sue. You've raised the same issue 3 separate times. Nothing changed. You sent the emails. Silence. You went through the official complaint process and watched it disappear into a drawer. And now you're sitting across from someone who keeps nodding and smiling while you feel completely, totally invisible. So out of pure exhaustion, the words fall out. Fine, I'll sue. I understand the impulse completely. When you feel powerless and every door has been closed, that threat feels like the last card in your hand, but the instant those words land in an HR setting, something irreversible happens. The conversation stops being a human conversation. It becomes a legal proceeding. HR can no longer talk to you informally about anything. Every word from that point gets weighed and recorded. Every past exchange you ever had gets pulled and reviewed. And any chance of quietly resolving the situation like adults without lawyers and formal filings vanishes on the spot. And here's the part almost nobody learns until it's far too late. Threatening to sue before you've actually retained an attorney usually weakens your legal position rather than strengthening it. You've put the company on full alert. They immediately bring in their legal team, and you're still standing there alone with nothing but anger. So if you truly believe you have a case, your first move is an attorney, not HR, not your manager, a lawyer. With a real case and real counsel behind you, every word you speak afterward carries a completely different weight, and the people on the other side of the table know it. So let's bring all of this home. Every single one of those 10 admissions shares the same hidden root. Honest emotion with no strategy behind it. Real legitimate situations walked into without any preparation. And none of that is your fault. Nobody sat you down before your first job and explained that the workplace runs on rules nobody writes down. Rules that quietly decide whether your career rises or stalls. Nobody warned you that the most dangerous thing you can do is be completely transparent with the wrong person on the wrong day. The lesson here is not to stop being honest. The lesson is to be deliberate about where you place your honesty. So take 3 things with you, starting today. First, speak in facts, not feelings. Not "this feels unfair," but "this decision was made without the criteria being shared with me, and I'd like to understand it." Before any meeting that matters, write down one factual sentence about what happened, stripped of all emotion. That sentence is your anchor when your heart starts pounding. Second, know your exact ask before you walk in. Not just a complaint, but one specific outcome you want to leave with. A meeting with your manager's manager, a timeline for a compensation review, a documented acknowledgement of your workload. Decide the ask before you sit down. Third, write it all down beforehand. What happened, what you want, and one sentence for what you'll say if the conversation turns against you. 3 sentences total. That is the entire distance between walking in prepared and walking in exposed. Daniel did none of those 3 things. He walked in wide open, trusting, with nothing written down, no specific ask, and no plan for the moment it turned on him. And here's where his story actually ends. He found new work eventually, almost 10 months later. He took a pay cut and started over somewhere nobody knew his name or his record. And now, when a new coworker tells him to just go to HR because they're there to help, Daniel just smiles and changes the subject because he finally understands what it cost him to learn this. The opposite of what happened to Daniel was never dishonesty, and it was never distrust. It was preparation. Plain and simple. Most people don't lose at work because they aren't talented. They lose because they said the wrong thing to the wrong person on the wrong day. Daniel was excellent at his job. He gave that company everything, and he lost it the moment he believed an open door meant a safe one. Now you know better. And really knowing this deep down might be the most valuable thing you carry out of this video. So before you ever walk into a meeting that could change your career, come back and watch this again. And if there's someone in your life about to march into that office, believing it's a safe place to unload, send this to them right now before they say something they can't take back. Then do me a favor and drop a comment below telling me which one of these you almost said this week, because I read every single one and I genuinely want to know how close you came. And if you want to stay 2 steps ahead while everyone else learns this the hard way, subscribe, because on this channel we tell you what nobody else will before the damage is already done. Don't be Daniel.